Hi, this is Dave, Fellow Running Guide. Welcome to this week's navigation task. We've got quite a tricky one this week, certainly a bit harder than ones we've had in previous weeks, but that's good, gives people a bit more of a challenge. So I simply want to know, where was this photograph taken? We've got a choice of 4 locations, A, B, C and D. And we're using the Harvey's Superwalker 1 to 25,000. Of the Peak District, the Dark Peak, and I've got a licensing agreement with Harvey's to use their maps for these tasks. So let's have a look at the photo. And what can we see? Well, we've got a stream and we are looking upstream. You can tell that by the flow here and this little bit of white water there as it flows down towards us. We've got steep ground coming down immediately on our left, on the left bank of the stream, and then rising up again on the right hand side, maybe not as steeply down towards the river as it is on the left hand side. And then if we were to walk upstream, probably a couple of 100 meters, we'd see the stream bends to the left slightly and goes out of sight. It's obscured behind this bit of ground here, and then the ground rises, a bit of a horizon here, and then on the far horizon we have rocks here. You just zoom in a bit on that, so you've got a definite rocky outcrop there, and then fewer rocks here. So how does that look on the map? Let's have a look. Could we be at A, looking up the River Derwent? Well, we're looking to a very flat area here with lots of little wiggles, so that doesn't make sense. Could we be looking up Horclough? Well, if we were looking up there, the ground would be quite shallow left and right. We wouldn't have a steep bank coming down on the left hand side, so that doesn't fit. What about if we were at B, looking northwestwards up the main stream? Well, we've certainly got steep bank on the left hand side of the river, and then going up as a contour line in here and here, so not as steep but still rising on the right. We could be looking up to Shepherd's Meeting Stones on the far horizon. What about if we were at B, looking up Coldwell Clough? Well, there we'd see the ground rising quite steeply upstream. We're looking up onto this high ground, no rocks on the horizon, so option 2 at B doesn't fit, but option 1, looking up the mainstream, sounds promising. What about at C? Could we be at C, looking upstream? Well, certainly got steep ground on our left and steepish ground on our right, so that possibly fits. We've got a bend in the stream there, bend in the stream there, so yeah, maybe C. What about D? Well, straight away at D, look at the width of the river. It doesn't look, it's far too wide there to just be able to step across as it looked in the first photo, in the photo rather. And then here, if we were here, we'd have a, looking upstream, we'd have a bend to the right, bend to the left, bend to the right, bend to the left, with this bit sticking out here. So that doesn't really fit at D, so we can discount A and D, but we might want to think about B and C as possibilities. So let's have a look a little bit more closely. So can we identify then the point where this steep ground comes down on the left and the stream bends around to the left if we were looking upstream? Okay, I'll just zoom in a little bit for this one. So we need to look for subtleties on this. What I should just mention is we could be at B. We wouldn't necessarily see this little ruin or this clough coming down if we were stood right at the junction looking in that direction, because it would be, this clough would be away to our right, so yeah, it wouldn't show on the photo. So what if we were here looking up and then that was the little bend and this was the steep ground coming down on our left? If we were looking up there, we'd be looking across, and then that crag there would be away to our right. So there, looking along the arrow, there's the bend to the left, there's the steepening, and looking up obliquely across these contour lines here. So the aspect of slope from this here, from this high ground, would be dropping down towards there, and we're looking across the contour lines, and that crag is there to our right. So that fits there. What about C? Well, look at that arrow there. If we were here looking onto the bend to the left, we'd have to be looking in this direction, which puts us up here somewhere with these crags over to our left. Now, some people thought we might be looking from here and the bend to the left was this point here, but that's probably almost 400 meters away there. There's the one grid line, there's the other, so that's quite a distance, probably further than we were looking on the photograph. And also we'd be looking at a long, very steep sided slope here. Yeah, so that isn't quite right. So B is looking more favourable. Then one more thing to think about, and that is how this horizon appears to drop right to left as we're looking at it. So the reason for that is, if we were at B looking across to here, we'd be crossing those contours at that oblique angle like I mentioned, rather than looking straight up it. If we were here looking up here and that was our left hand bend, we'd be looking much more directly up the contour lines here, so the far horizon wouldn't appear to be dropping to the left. We'd be looking much more straight up the fall line, if you like. Okay, so that puts us towards thinking the answer is B. And did we have any top answers from social media commentators? Well, yeah, I picked this one up from Nigel on Facebook, and this is good. So he's saying going to go against the flow, and what he means there is going contrary to other people's opinions who were saying it was C. So he's sticking his neck on the line saying it's B. It's too small a flow for D, which we mentioned, the width of the river. It's all sorts of wrong to be A, so that flat ground and those wiggles. And then he's saying the sides of the river don't look steep enough to be C. And the other giveaway is the shape of the slope in the distance, with the rocks of Shepherd's Meeting Stones visible on the skyline. So it has to be B. So yeah, I would agree with those, Nigel. So yeah, well reasoned. So anyway, like I said, it was a tricky one this week. I know a lot of people thought it was C, but hopefully, looking at the answer now, you can understand that a little bit more, and hope it makes sense. But anyway, thanks for watching, and look out for next week's navigation task. Bye for now.